That's the latest from the Stop Kamala project. They're absolutely wonderful, gang. Check them out at stopkamalaproject.com. Let's make that song the #1 trending song on the internet. It deserves it. It'll go well with the liberal tears as they survey the state of this election, gang. Remember, the election has already begun, and everything, literally everything, is breaking for Trump. You're not going to believe the latest coming out of the otherwise reliably blue state of Virginia. Gang, strap yourselves in. This is going to be one heck of a ride. Hey, gang, with everything going on right now, it's hard to say what could happen or what will happen. And to make matters even worse, we usually don't find out until it's too late. But when it comes to your money, you should understand what's at stake. That's why I partnered with Goldco. Now, you guys know I'm a big fan of hedging future risks with the timeless value of gold and silver. And that's why you've got to click on the link below or go to turleytalkslikesgold.com to get your free gold and silver kit. Gang, it's an amazing free resource that shows you step-by-step how to get into precious metals tax-free and penalty-free, even if your money's still in a retirement account like an IRA or a 401k. And the best part is that you may already qualify to get up to $10,000 in free silver. You've seen the writing on the wall. Click on that link below or go to turleytalkslikesgold.com to get your free gold and silver kit right now, because this is about taking back control of your freedom and your privacy. We can't predict the future, but we can certainly prepare for it. So don't wait. Take action now to defend your freedom, your privacy, and your future. Click on that link below right now. Something extraordinary is happening right now, gang, and it is happening in the otherwise reliably blue state of Virginia. Now, let me set the stage here for you so we can understand just how significant what's happening in the Old Dominion state really is. Last week, early voting began in Virginia, literally 1 week ago, and everyone was absolutely stunned, delightfully so, by the turnout in the reddest areas of the state, the most Trumpy counties, the most Trumpy districts. If you don't know, Virginia is divided up into 11 congressional districts, and the voting numbers are coming in courtesy of the Virginia Public Access Project, or VPAP. And what VPAP began showing as of last Friday was that the top 4 districts in terms of voter turnout, the top 4 districts in Virginia were all deep, deep ruby red. So these were all solid Republican districts that voted for Trump by upwards of 70% back in 2020 and 2016. And their turnout numbers for early voting were through the roof. Now, these are congressional districts 1, 5, 6, and 9. And as of last week, they collectively represented just over 25,000 early votes. By comparison, the 5 Democrat-leaning districts, districts 3, 4, 8, 10, and 11, I shouldn't even say leaning, they're pretty solid blue, they cast just over 20,000 votes. And then the swing districts of Districts 7 and 2, they cast just over 7,000 votes. So what we're seeing in Virginia, what we're seeing as of last week, just literally the day after early vote began, was that the 4 Republican districts were not only outvoting the 5 Democrat districts, they were coming within just a couple of thousand votes of actually beating both the Democrat and swing districts combined. That's how early voting started in a state that no Republican has won since 2004. No Republican presidential candidate. As of last week, the voter turnout in Virginia's reddest districts was within view of beating both the blue and purple districts put together. Now, the concern, and this is very important, obviously because of what happened in 2020, we were all stressing caution in the midst of these very, very optimistic numbers. And that caution that analysts of Virginia's early voting were sobering us with was that these numbers were most likely going to change over the course of the next week. It's just a matter of time before the Kamala districts start coming out and doing what they do best, which is overwhelm the red districts, the Trumpy districts, with their characteristic propensity towards early voting. Remember, Democrats tend to vote early. Republicans tend to vote on election day. So this is a very good start, no question. It shows that the base is fired up. MAGA is energized, but don't get your hopes up. Next week, expect things to even out. Well, here we are at the end of that next week, the week we were cautioned we would see a spike in Democrat turnout. And what, pray tell, did we see? Gang, take a look at this. This is data from Project Virginia. Look at this. Every single one of the top 4 districts in voter turnout, every single one this week continues to be the deepest red district in the state. Every single one. The early voter turnout in Virginia is hands down a massively pro-Trump turnout. It actually gets better. Keep looking. See those top 6? Let me see. I counted wrong. Top 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Of the top 7 districts returning ballots in early voting, of the top 7, 6 are solid red. Keep in mind, Virginia only has 11 districts. 5 of the top 7 are solid red. They're pro-Trump. I'm sorry, 6 of the top 7 are solid red pro-Trump. Now, what this means is that 2/3 of the early voting in Virginia is coming from solid red Republican districts. 2/3. Buchanan County is seeing a 200% turnout from 2020. Craig is seeing a 230% turnout from 2020. Scott is seeing 192% turnout. Smith is seeing a near plus 500% turnout from 2020. Yes, you heard that right. Smith is seeing a near 500% plus turnout from 2020. These are all counties that voted Trump 60 to 70%. It's stunning. And it's not just that the early voting has yet to course correct in accordance with past patterns. That's not what we saw. What we saw this week is now it's really more a matter of just how far off course this election is given 2020 norms. The Republicans are absolutely blowing this out of the water in terms of early voting. Now, why is this so important? Well, it's important because of 2 reasons in particular. First and foremost, it's important because early voting was a key factor to Glenn Youngkin's strategy for winning the state. Now, up until he won the gubernatorial election in 2021, Virginia Republicans were getting hammered in the early vote totals, right? We saw it in 2020. We saw it again in the midterms in 2022. Their election day turnout, which always dominates, and we can expect that to happen again. I'll show you why, which always dominates. It just simply couldn't make up the difference. So Youngkin's campaign dedicated substantial efforts to get the Republican vote out early, such that the usually large Democrat lead prior to Election Day was dramatically reduced. Now, the key to that was to make sure that early vote, that early Republican vote, was no propensity voters. So, in other words, voters who had not voted in any election, either ever or didn't vote in the last 4 or voted maybe once in the last 4. So that's called low propensity to no propensity voter. High propensity voters were going to come out on election day. What you had to do is you had to harvest the ballots, as it were, of low to no propensity voters to vote early so as to be able to minimize the Democrat margins that they accumulate in the early voting and then crush them on election day. And Youngkin was able to go in and win with this massive election day turnout precisely because he had minimized the early vote margins that Democrats always accumulate. It looks like the same thing is happening here right now with Trump in Virginia. And of course, Youngkin is central in Trump's Virginia strategy. Now, of course, things could change. We've got another 40 days, right? We've got to make sure we give these caveats, these qualifications. But as things stand right now in terms of early voting, it does appear Trump is absolutely crushing Kamala in the otherwise reliably blue state of Virginia. So that's the first important takeaway from this, that this strategy was instrumental in Youngkin being able to win Virginia, if I recall, by about 2 points. But secondly, and this is huge, it's important because it's showing that Republicans have themselves in this election cycle mobilize low to no propensity voters. The data that we're seeing here is that 20% of these early voters are first-time voters. These early voters are first-time voters, 20%. 20% have not voted in the last 4 elections. Now, again, why this is so key to understanding what's happening here in Virginia is that, I mean, if you've been with this channel for some time, you'll know this, or if you've been following Rich Barris of the People's Pundit or Robert Barnes or Larry Schweikert, they've been talking about this for months now. You'll know that low propensity to no propensity voters are disproportionately pro-Trump. One of the reasons for that's because, according to Pew, 80% of low to no propensity voters are non-college grad voters. Non-college grad voters. And they are overwhelmingly Trumpy. Low to no prop voters are breaking Trump now 3-1. We've got the stats on that. In this election, low to no prop voters are voting Trump 3-1. Just astonishing. Again, Rich Barris has been pointing this out for months now. This is the first election that he can remember when a higher voter turnout actually favors the Republican presidential candidate. Right? Generally speaking, higher turnout in our past elections, higher turnout tends to favor the Democrat because you get all these cosmopolitan, urban voters coming out, and they overwhelm the rural vote. That's not what's happening now. It's in fact the opposite. It looks like Democrats have tapped out the urban vote, and now it's the rural vote. It's the no propensity or low propensity voter that doesn't care about doesn't care about what's going on in D.C. Now they're coming out in mass, and it's totally favoring Trump. This is what happened in Brexit, by the way. We talk about this all the time. Back in June of 2016, all the elites thought that the bigger the turnout was, the more it would benefit the Remainers, those who want to stay in the EU, because they thought it reflected larger cosmopolitan support. And that massive turnout did happen. More Brits voted for the ultimate referendum than had ever voted in any election in the UK's history. But what happened? Well, to the shock of all pundits and politicians alike, pro-EU politicians and pundits alike, the Brexit referendum passed. And it passed because low propensity to no propensity voters, the very voters who are not being polled, by the way. Keep that in mind. These are the very voters who are not being polled. Low propensity, no propensity voters, particularly in rural areas all throughout the UK, came out and voted in mass to leave. These are voters that were never polled. All the polls showed that the referendum was going to go down in flames, that voters in the UK were overwhelmingly going to vote to stay in the European Union. But that's only because those polls never counted any of these low prop to no prop voters in their surveys. And they happened to come out en masse and voted in favor of a populist national sovereignty referendum. And they said in post-referendum, post-election polls, they said, finally, there's something I could vote for. Up to this point, there was nothing I could vote for. No party, no politician cares about me. Why do I care about them? I don't care. But now, this independence referendum, now I've got something to vote for. It's exactly what happened in 2016. It overwhelmed Hillary, absolutely blindsided her. Almost happened again in 2020. It did, but, within 40,000 votes. And it looks like we're seeing something very similar happening right now in Virginia. And I can assure you, if it's happening in Virginia, it's going to happen in spades in North Carolina, which always, always, always votes to the right of Virginia. Did I mention always? Oh, and speaking of, did you see this? Did you see it? Looky here. North Carolina, which is solid red now. I know many of you know that. They have a supermajority Republican legislature. Officials in North Carolina just purged, get this, 747,000 ineligible voters or names from their voter rolls. 747,000. I thought 2020 was the most pristine, honest, integral election ever to take place in the history of the universe. What gives? What's this? Why would North Carolina have to purge their voter rolls of nearly 750,000 ineligible voters? Why would they have to do that? George Stephanopoulos, doesn't Georgie tell us each and every week that 2020 was the single most honest, immaculate, unblemished election in the history of humanity? Well, obviously somebody's wrong here. Must be these North Carolina officials. Of course, these evil Wascoe Republicans.